Do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by so doing you shall never incur sin. Purport. Lord Krishna now directly says that Arjuna should fight for the sake of fighting because he desires the battle. There is no consideration of happiness or distress, profit or gain, victory or defeat in the activities of Krishna consciousness. That everything should be performed for the sake of Krishna is transcendental consciousness. So there is no reaction to material activities. He who acts for his own sense gratification, either in goodness or in passion, is subject to the reaction, good or bad. But he who has completely surrendered himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness is no longer obliged to anyone, nor is he a debtor to anyone, as one is in the ordinary course of activities. It is said, Devarshi bhutapta nuyam pitrinam nakinkaro naivaṁ rini charajan sarvatmanaya sharanam sharanyam gato mukundam parihritya kartam. Anyone who is completely surrendered unto Krishna, Mukunda, giving up all other duties, is no longer a debtor, nor is he obliged to anyone, not the demigods, nor the sages, nor the people in general, nor kinsmen, nor humanity, nor forefathers. That is the indirect hint given by Krishna to Arjuna in this verse, and the matter will be more clearly explained in the following verses. The first two padas, the first two lines of this verse, this applies to anyone fighting anywhere in any condition. That if you're going to fight, you have to stop thinking at each moment about whether I should fight, whether it's good, what will be the result of this. You just have to completely dedicate yourself and make yourself completely absorbed in the fighting. Then there's a possibility of winning or staying alive. Unless you're fighting a war, means at any moment you can die. And therefore you have to be just fully absorbed in it. Even when there's a break in the Vedic system, they break at the end of the day. But even during the time when you're not directly fighting, then everything else you do is just focused on what you have to do to make yourself fit for fighting the next day. You have to rest sufficiently, you have to eat sufficiently, not too much. No booze, no alcohol. You have to be fully fit physically, mentally, you have to be fully dedicated to what you're doing. Of course the fighting may be so bad, it's so unpalatable and disgusting, and you may feel like that, and then you see so many people dying, you may not think that, well, if I die then so what, it may not matter. But therefore the commanders in chief, the general has to come and regularly say to the troops, okay, come on men, we got to fight and win. There should be commitment. Why are we going to fight? It's difficult to get people to have this kind of full dedication to fighting unless they think that it's worth risking their life for, because you don't know. Any moment you may die. You go out to the battlefield, go out to the battle, and you don't know if you'll come back in the evening. And your friend who's with you, it may be that you're just charging, and then all of a sudden you look to the right and he's not there anymore. He got shot down. So to have that kind of commitment, you have to be convinced that this is something worth dying for. Death is something that people don't generally go into very easily or very lightly. What's considered the worst punishment is capital punishment, ultimate punishment. And even today there's a lot of debate about this, about whether or not there should be capital punishment. In America, in some states, it goes on. But then there are people who say no, it shouldn't be. Whatever they've done, you can't punish them by taking their life. In England for many years they stopped that in Britain. Actually, they're still allowed for treason. It's still, you know what treason is? It means when you act against the state. Just like, for instance, if or spying or giving military information to, or plotting to kill the queen or something like that. So theoretically, it's still allowed for that. And every so often they have a vote in the Houses of Parliament about whether they should allow it or not. But it's not a party vote. It's, in other words, they say it's a matter, it's too grave an issue, we can't take party lines on this. That each individual has to vote according to their own conscience. And it's not allowed, it doesn't come through. So death is considered, punishment by death is such a heavy punishment, they don't want to give it to anyone, even people be murdered, 50 people or something, and still there's a feeling, well, we shouldn't punish them by death. Of course we know, according to Vedic knowledge, there's a completely different outlook. They should be punished by death, because if they don't, then they're going to suffer more. But people don't know. But the point I'm making here is that death is it's considered so terrible. And yet, there are people who risk their lives. Because, why should they do that? Well, if they think the cause is worth dying for, that we have to protect our country from the villainy of the invasion by other people, or you have to uphold human rights, or whatever it may be. They may be inspired to fight, that it's a noble cause. You can also hire soldiers, mercenary soldiers, but you can't expect that they will fight with the same spirit, because they're fighting for money, and they don't care they don't care what the cause is, they just want to get the money, so they're not likely to take great risks. So Krishna is inciting Arjuna to fight, and he says, you won't incur sin by this. Now, this is not something we hear in the modern battle speeches. Just fight and you won't incur sin. There's no concept like this. But this was Arjuna's doubt, that he didn't want to engage in sinful activity, and he didn't want to do anything which would go against dharma. But Krishna is showing him here that if you fight, you will not be involved in sin. For you in this situation to fight, you will not get sin. So he's alleviating Arjuna's, or attempting to alleviate Arjuna's doubt that he would be involved in sin. Now, we see here as is well known, Bhagavad-gītā is Krishna inciting Arjuna to fight. Although actually, to fight or not, that is not the most important message. The most important message is that Arjuna should surrender to Krishna, which in Arjuna's case meant that he should fight. It's not for everyone. Bhagavad-gītā is not a general battle call, that now we're distributing Bhagavad-gītā door to door, and then you don't expect people to come up and say, okay, I read it. Where's the fight? Where are we going to go? Give us bows and arrows, and we'll go and fight. People don't understand it in that way, because that's not the message. It's just case specific for Arjuna that he had to fight. But the point is that one has to do whatever Krishna wants one to do. And one has to be fully convinced to do that, because actually, in another sense, taking up Krishna consciousness means to fight against Maya. It means to go against the whole current of thought and the whole way of thinking of the whole human society. So it's a fight. It's individually it's a fight against Maya, because Maya is telling us, don't be Krishna conscious, just be peaceful. And Arjuna wanted to be peaceful. Peaceful like the pigs peacefully lying in the gutter. They feel very peaceful, very happy. So that's the shanti, that's the peacefulness of material, very peacefully lead a disgusting existence. But one has to fight. It's for a higher cause. So that's individually we have to fight, and also, especially, preaching Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada, he many times compared that to fighting. To preach Krishna consciousness means to declare war against Maya, and he said that our Krishna conscious movement, it's a declaration of war against the materialistic society. Now again, it's not that our devotees are going to pick up guns and bombs and be trained as terrorists, but we have another kind of bomb, but that's a peaceful bomb. It doesn't produce destruction or blood or chaos, but it's a bomb in the sense that it destroys the materialistic way of thinking. Peaceful revolution, you can say. Prabhupada often gave that analogy. He said our temples are not meant to be places for eating and sleeping, but bases for which we go out to fight with Maya. And to fight with Maya means to drop millions of books into the laps of the conditioned souls. Just like in the wartime, the bombs are dropping. Prabhupada had experience of that. He was in Calcutta when it was being bombed by the Japanese. Or some people say there was the British bombing. You never know, you can't say. Maybe it wasn't the Japanese, maybe it was the British. Because somehow or other all the bombs fell in the Indian quarters and they never fell because the Europeans, they wouldn't live with the Indians because Indians are an inferior race. Everyone knows that, right? So, that's what the British thought. So, somehow or other, every time the Japanese bombed, it always landed in the Indian quarters and never in the British quarters. So that gave rise to some people thinking that maybe it was the British bombing and telling it was in this way they were trying to get the Indian people to become enthusiastic about fighting the Japanese. Because they weren't so enthusiastic, why should they care? Already the British are ruling us, so what difference does it make if the Japanese rule us? Prabhupada gave that example. And he was motivational. One of the qualities of a leader is, a good leader is that he's motivational. He's able to get people, let's do it, let's go. Because mostly people want to lie in the gutter like pigs. They'll just lie down and not do it. Just be peaceful. But Prabhupada, he didn't come to the West just to look at the scenery and write a poem or two and go back. But Prabhupada had a mission to change the whole of human society, and that's not a small thing to do. To change the whole course of modern society. He had so many plans he wanted to change everything, more or less. The whole economic structure of society. He wanted to close the factories, the whole educational system, the diet, the whole way of thinking and acting, and Prabhupada is very ambitious. So he motivated his disciples to work hard, because when there's a war, Even if you're not out there directly on the front lines, then everyone has to cooperate in the war effort. It's not really a time for sitting and composing poetry, unless it's military oriented. Poets also have their use in the war, but then even the poetry, if you write any poetry in the war which is not military oriented, what's wrong? This is wrong. You should only write poetry which is inciting the men to fight. Ours is not to reason why, ours is but to do and die, wrote some poet whose name I can't remember. But this was to make the soldiers feel good about, there was somewhere in the Crimea, there was the charge of the Light Brigade. Some British soldiers in Crimea, I think somewhere out near Ukraine or Georgia or somewhere. So there was 2 hills and like a straight valley, and on both sides of the hills were the Turkish soldiers, and the British officer told them to charge towards the other end, and there were guns on both sides, and they all got killed, more or less. It was one of the most stupid orders ever given in the history of military. Although generally the British were quite good. Maybe he was drunk or something, I don't know. But anyway, the poet wrote the famous lines, "Ours is not to reason why, ours is but to do and die." He gave an order, you have to follow it. You're all going to get killed, then too bad. That's the military. So even if you're going to write poetry, and any art, the entertainers, they use this Bob Hope, one of the famous, actually he was born in England, but one of the famous American comedians. He was much appreciated because he, I think, was to the Korean War, and he entertained the soldiers so they can have a little comic relief from the misery of being shot at by Koreans. They don't know what they're fighting for. They're fighting against communism. So they weren't very successful because North Korea is still there after so many years, and they've got their atom bombs, and they don't care about the nuclear non-proliferation theories or whatever. So even the comedy, that should be war or everything. The women at home, that's one way how the women came to be accepted, that women can work in offices and factories and all these kind of things. Because with the globalization of war towards the end of the 19th century, all the men went out to fight, and then at home the women had to work the factories, making the guns and the bombs and everything else. So when the war finished, it was accepted. It wasn't socially acceptable previously. In an agrarian society, it was just a few men. You couldn't go very far anyway. How far can you go on a horse? And you just go and they'd have a fight, and then it wasn't that everyone went to. All the men, they get put on a ship and sent out to India or something to go and fight in some long distance far away. But wars were more local, and so the women, everyone didn't fight also. But war in the modern age, it's become everyone's involved. Everyone has to do something for the war effort. Everyone's supposed to contribute to the war effort. And everyone becomes very close together, and they all hate the Germans and like this. There's a famous wax museum in England, in London, Madame Tussauds Wax Street. I never went there, but I heard. So they have these wax figures which look like real life. And I just saw in the newspaper that 2 years ago, they took the glass case off the one of Hitler, because otherwise, up until about 2 years ago, everyone used to spit on it. They hated him so much. So this motive of hating, everyone hated it, so they're able to get people enlivened. Okay, yeah, let's work hard because we hate Hitler, yeah, kill the Germans. And now it's quite comical when we do like this, but actually that's how people are feeling. And it's good for getting people motivated. Hate is a strong emotion. So everyone, we love the British and we hate the Germans, and we're gonna die for our country, and we're gonna kill all the Germans. So it works. That's Machiavellian politics. He worked this out. That if you really want to get the people motivated, then keep them at war all the time. Otherwise, if they're not fighting against an external enemy, they'll be fighting among themselves. So it's better you always have a war going on outside, and then everyone will be united. And this way you can control the people very nicely. That was this political theory which is going on to the present day. So fighting, it's very good to have a common enemy and a mission. It's very good to get people motivated and bring them all together. So Prabhupada also employed this. Of course, his fight was for the noblest cause. That we're not fighting against anyone, any person. We don't hate anyone. It's not motivated by hate, but it's motivated by love. That out of gratefulness to Srila Prabhupada for having saved us, and whether if even a slight reflection of the compassion that he felt to deliver others from their self-inflicted torture of repeated birth and death, with a need to change society, then we should preach Krishna consciousness. And everyone should, like that, like in war effort, everyone should be fully focused on that, working hard to do whatever is required to push on Krishna consciousness with full faith that by doing this, everyone will be benefited. We shall also be benefited. We shall not be the losers. That if we simply surrender ourselves in the Sankirtan mission, then surely Krishna will look after us, as Prabhupada often said. He gave the example that the soldiers who risk their lives, so they're decorated with a medal, they're looked after by the state, so they don't have to worry for anything. Of course, if you die fighting against Pakistan at Kargil or something, then it doesn't help you very much. But if you give your life for Krishna, then even if you physically die in the effort, then that is glorious. Krishna will look after you. So with that enthusiasm and determination are the first two factors for advancing in Krishna consciousness, and they automatically come about if we realize what is the mission of Krishna consciousness. We have to spread Krishna consciousness. We have to do whatever is required to help bring people to Krishna consciousness, to change the world by spreading Krishna consciousness. So that sometimes it seems that we got somewhat carried away. Sometimes we hear nowadays that, well, you shouldn't be so fanatical, and in the past we were too fanatical on this and that, and undoubtedly there were certain excesses. I mean, sometimes the devotees went too far. But on the whole, it was a very blissful and productive era in which we used to hear about the pujaris. They used to have great difficulty in the Mangalarti to not dance because everyone else is dancing so enthusiastically because they're all so blissful from working hard and spreading Krishna. The pujari is just trying not to dance because everyone else is just floating in ecstasy. So, because they're so enthusiastic, now we have Mangalarti, Japa Prabhu, then we're going to go and distribute the books. So everyone was very enthusiastic about that. Of course, you could say, well, it's difficult to keep that mood going on for a long time. This war against Maya, it's more a war of attrition than one which will be won in a few battles. War of attrition means it's you wear the opposition down. It's a gradual process. It goes on over a long time. So it can be more difficult to keep the enthusiasm going. If there's a big battle, we won! Then then you feel enthusiastic. But then if it goes on year after year after year, it's difficult to keep the enthusiasm. In the old Soviet Union, they used to try to keep people enthusiastic about communism and the red takeover of the world, and there's so much propaganda, but no one believed it. No one was interested in it. They had no faith in the mission of communism to rid the world of the evils of capitalism. But people weren't enthusiastic. You had anything like that? You remember in your childhood? No. You had like that also? Something like that? Yugoslavia was a watered down version of the USSR. So they had something like that also. So it may be difficult to maintain the enthusiasm, but actually in Krishna consciousness it shouldn't be, because if we realize what we are doing, what we're engaged in, that even as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, even at the expense of all my marks and all my endeavors, if we can make one person a pure devotee, I would consider my mission successful. So much endeavor. You may think, well, what's going on? What happened? And, well, if one person becomes a pure devotee, it's a great success. And what to speak, if we distribute one book, then that is what we're doing. The people, they don't understand, but it's actually the most significant thing, the only significant thing that happened to them in millions of births. It's the only thing of any value that ever happened to anyone if they get one of Prabhupada's books. So it may not seem like a war-like situation. We go out and distribute books and we come back and nothing seems to change very much, and the people don't seem to think like it's a war. So, you see, you want to say no. Oh, okay, alright. They're absorbed in other things. There are so many things going on. Now it's time for the World Cup soccer, and the world is absorbed in that, it seems. It's on the front, yesterday we saw the front page of the newspaper. It hasn't even started yet, and it's already on the front page of the newspaper. In India, where people don't, they're trying to get them interested, although previously they didn't have any interest, so people have interest in other things. Politics. Sometimes I go to a place and then in India on a Sunday, for the Sunday program, very few people say, so I can understand there must be some big cricket match on the TV, and less people come, because they like to come to the temple, but if there's an important cricket match, then less people will come. Especially if it's a youth-oriented crowd, going for student preaching, and less students come if there's an important cricket match, very important. Someone's throwing a ball and someone's hitting it with a piece of wood, and it's very important. So it doesn't seem like the Krishna conscious movement, people are taking it very seriously. And even those that do, we were just discussing yesterday, this man was very impressed. But the people are impressed by big buildings, big temple, and you say, well, this temple cost so many crores. Krishna's inside it, by the way. They're impressed by the crores of rupees. They're not impressed by the Krishna. Krishna's there. It doesn't matter. But this temple costs crores of rupees. Oh, very impressive. So people are stupid, and they don't seem to take the Krishna conscious movement very seriously. But that's what the war is all about. To wake people up to the real necessity of life. That we're simply spoiling our lives without knowing Krishna. So it may seem like, just life's going on, go to Mangala, you get up, go and just review books, come back to the Prasad, go to sleep, get up the next morning, go. It may seem like it's a kind of routine, like going to a factory every day. But it's significant. It's a great fight against Maya to change the world. Prabhupada said that this Krishna consciousness movement will go down in history for having changed the world in its darkest hour. And he said that in the 1970s, and it's getting darker. It's really... We don't know how bad it can become. What was that you telling me? Which country is that? Denmark? They legalize that you can marry a pig or something. That means what? Is it? You can marry an animal. You can marry an ant or something. A pig. They already have, you can marry a man to a man, and some father married his own son. 1997. So how bad can it become? It's inconceivable, but practically it's even more inconceivable how in this bad age actually so many people are taking up Krishna consciousness. When we consider how contaminated the whole world situation is, that anyone is taking to Krishna consciousness, anyone has the higher interest. When you see that from childhood practically people are bombarded with the lowest and grossest kind of propaganda. Like in the schools, for 7-year-old children, they're teaching sex education, heterosex, homosex, everything, just to get them prepared. Prepared, they're already starting, or else someone started on them. It's amazingly horrible, and on the internet we're told there's so many bad things, and even children can access it, and it's amazing that anyone is taken to Krishna consciousness at all. Somehow, by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, the effect is there. So, this mood of that we have to do something to help others. We have to serve the mission of Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas. This mood we have to keep alive. Otherwise, if we take it like just like a kind of routine thing, then where will we get the inspiration? It is a war of attrition. It means in a war of attrition, you have to think of the longer term also. If you're in a pitched battle like Arjuna, then you may take great risks. In a war of attrition, you have to think more of the long term. You have to maybe how to maintain your bodily health and how to be able to maintain over the years. Like this, if you expect the war may go on for many years, so you have to consider also. Someone might go out now and distribute books non-stop for 70 hours and then collapse and go to the hospital. So they got enthusiastic, but then they remain in the hospital for 2 weeks, and then it might have been better to have distributed for 7 hours a day, come back and gone on day after day, like that. So it's a war, which means it's intense. But at the same time, it's a prolonged battle. So we have to consider the long term. We have to keep ourselves fit for fighting. But then we have to realize that what are we doing here? We're not just keeping fit. Now it's popular in India, gymnasiums. People go and they do weightlifting and this and that. They're just keeping fit physically so that they can try to enjoy material life. So devotees have to keep fit physically, mentally, spiritually. But what for? For the sake of serving the mission of the acharyas. It's not that we just want to be fit. Even spiritually fit, we have to rise early, join in the kirtan, chant our rounds, read Prabhupada's books, but that we should understand that's all to facilitate our performing activities which are pleasing to Krishna. Now, chanting in itself, of course, that's pleasing to Krishna. But, as Srila Prabhupada said, we don't want Babaji class. We want Arjuna. We want Arjuna, devotees like Arjuna who are prepared to not just sit, but do something for Krishna. Go out and do what Krishna wants without consideration, happiness or distress. Well, I think I'd be happier if I was sitting in a field in Vrindavan and living like a Babaji. I'm having a feast every day also, but we don't want to be too fanatical like the Babajis, only eating half a chapati every 3 days. Of course, the Babajis, they don't do that. But if we're thinking, even for our own Krishna consciousness, if we're thinking, yes, I need this situation, that situation, then it becomes almost materialistic. Like the karmis, they're thinking, I should adjust this, I should adjust that, then I'll be happy. So we're thinking, well, this situation, so that situation, but we'll never find, if we're thinking like that, we'll never find any perfect situation. And if we just give ourselves to the service of the Sankirtan movement, we'll find that in itself is a perfect situation. What we think is a perfect situation probably isn't perfect, because we need some, even for our spiritual advancement, we need some struggle. Unless there's a struggle, unless we can struggle for Krishna, then how are we going to pray to Krishna to help us if everything's easy? In material life, everyone's looking for easy, but kashta na kole, Krishna milibena, without taking some difficulty, we won't get Krishna. Krishna didn't say to Arjuna, yes, I sympathize with what you're saying. Yes, it's true. You've had a long, hard life, and now it's time you just retire, and you can become Arjuna Das Babaji. As Prabhupada said, Krishna never said to Arjuna that you just relax here on this chariot and I'll do all the fighting for you. You just sit here and we'll bring you a nice cold lemon sherbet and you just relax. I'm sorry. I didn't want to put you in any difficulty, so I'm sorry I asked you to fight. Please don't mind. Don't make a court case against me. And you just relax here on this chariot and we'll bring some people to fan you and massage your feet and you just be happy. That's all right. Let's not fight. Okay, let Duryodhana be the king and then like that. Then why should you take any trouble? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. But Krishna didn't say that. He said, Dasochanam vasocha strong pragyavadans chabasasa ikatasanagatasa nanu sochanti pandita. What are you talking about, you fool? You think you know what you're talking about? You're very learned. You're just a fool. You're talking like an idiot. So this is how Krishna, he prodded Arjuna. Nowadays it's considered very bad to do that. The parent cannot say to the child, cannot punish him, cannot say. If he says anything to the child, immediately the child will go and make a court case. It's so in America, it's just insane. It's just one symptom of the insanity. And the biggest insanity of all is that they think that this is an advanced civilization. It's just so ridiculous that that everyone's just nice to each other. Of course, they're killing millions of chickens every day. And no one's happy. But they think their civilization is so advanced that I was hearing one devotee, he brought up his daughters very strictly. They're very chaste, he brought them up like that, and then about the age of 16, 17 they just rebelled and said, no, we want to have boyfriends and mini skirts and everything, and they just went to the police and then they threw him out. They got rid of him. So the law would not allow him to keep his daughters chaste. That they should have the right to be just like prostitutes and have boyfriends and abortions, and they have a right. So that's the battle. I mean, we see how bad society is. But then we have to be convinced of that. If we are also thinking that well, Prabhupada was quite good, and United Nations Charter of Human Rights, I think Prabhupada was quite good because a lot of the things he said was in line with the United Nations Charter of Human Rights. So I think we can give Prabhupada about 7 out of 10. So if we think like that, then where are we going to get the enthusiasm to distribute these books? Unless we're fully convinced. Unless we're fully convinced, then how are we going to remain in Krishna consciousness anyway? Sarvam etad vritang manye yanmang vadasi Keshava. Everything you say, Keshava, I accept as truth. If you don't accept like that, then you can't fight. As Arjuna fought. Karishye vachanam tava. I will do as you say, Krishna. And that's on the battlefield. If you're in the middle of the battle, if you're thinking, well, now we have to attack Drona, and how can I attack Drona? This was Arjuna's fear before. Or how can we tell a lie that Ashvatthama is killed? You're in the middle of the battlefield. Krishna said, okay, we have to do it. Yudhishthira hesitated to tell the lie. And then his chariot came down. The karmis say because he told the lie, but the devotees know his chariot came down because he hesitated to obey Krishna's order. He was thinking of his own reputation and his morality more than just doing what Krishna wanted. And just see what Krishna did. Krishna, he tricked Drona. He advised Arjuna to kill Karna in a situation which was against dharma. So he did so many things, but that was required for the battle. If you think I shall be very moralistic and I shall always follow everything according to mundane morals, then actually you can't preach Krishna consciousness. You can't live in this modern world at all, anyway, actually, because people talk about morals, but they do so many. It's a very hypocritical age in which people talk of morality, love, peace, humanitarianism, and while everyone is engaged in exploiting and cheating everyone else as much as possible. It's funny, they're building all these schools, and in the schools they theoretically teach about love and be good to others, but all the schools are they're made by people who made their money by being totally corrupt, who build the school by being corrupt, and who accept what's practically a bribe to let people into the school. This entrance fee, what do they call it? Donation or something. Donation means it's a bribe. You have to pay so much money. But then people imbibe, they don't imbibe the good qualities that you're talking about. They imbibe the habit of talking very sweetly while stabbing people in the back and right in the throat, in the face also. But they do it sweetly, like this. That's why I always say this, Hitler in some ways is better than George Bush, because Hitler, he just said, we're German, and to hell with all of you, we need more land, we need more space, so we're going to invade you all. So, bad luck to you. But whereas George Bush says, humanitarianism and morality and uplift of the human race, and goes and invades countries and kills people for political ends only. So, anyway, our fight is against this Maya in this very difficult time in human society. We have to be fully convinced that what Prabhupada has given us is worth risking our everything for. And what Prabhupada has given us is what people need. They need to get these. We have to somehow or other communicate this to people, and we have to work together to do that. We can't always think what I want to do and what's good for me. That's also a consideration, but the main consideration is how we can serve the mission of the Acharyas. Krishna consciousness is not theoretical. We're not just reading these books so we can have some theoretical knowledge, but it's practically exhibited in what are we doing for Krishna. So with that faith, that if we simply, as Prabhupada said, just give this one life for Krishna. So many lives we've given for serving dogs, and when I was a dog I served other dogs, when I was a cat I served other cats. We've spent so many lives serving so many useless masters. Just give this one life for Krishna, Prabhupada said. You will not be the loser. So this Krishna is telling Arjuna, just fight. You won't be the loser. Fight, dedicate, do whatever is required to be successful. Hare Krishna. Any question about this?
Just you mentioned in the beginning that they didn't use alcohol in Vedic fightings. Any kind of intoxication.
I didn't say that. I said the person who gave the order to charge at the Battle of the Light Brigade was maybe drunk.
No, but in the Vedic times.
Did I say they didn't use alcohol?
Yeah, when taking risk.
Oh, I see. No, I'm pretty sure they didn't. When they're fighting.
Yeah, then they have to be sober.
Yeah, Kshatriyas, but they could drink alcohol, but not at the time, not in the battle. That would be at sacrifices. They wouldn't go into the fight drunk. Even that, Kshatriyas, they had allowance to eat meat, gamble, have sex, not with others' wives, but more broadly than others. And what's the other one? Intoxication. But in certain restrictions, certain times, places and circumstances. Not generally, then they can just go to the bar and drink some beer or something. Not like that. Which is what the so-called Kshatriya caste in modern India think. We're Kshatriya, so we have to eat meat. But if they're real Kshatriya, they have to go out, kill the animal, and bring it back. It has to be offered in sacrifice and purified. Then only they can eat. There's still in Africa. There's one tribe. What's that called? The Maasai. Yeah. So they have to go out and kill a lion with their bare hands. Then they're accepted as a man. I don't know if they still do that, but they're really warrior caste. Can you imagine? It's pretty frightening, no? Just a young boy, 18 or something. But they're not afraid, that's the point. Kshatriyas aren't afraid. Fearless. In the forest, they have these like game reserves in East Africa, and anyone goes in there, if they just walk around, then a lion can come get you. But the lions won't go near the Maasai. They just wander around as they like. I was told that by this Mukund who's coming here. He's from Tanzania. They keep some herb on their skin, and then the lion, by smelling that, knows that's Messiah. And they keep a long way away from them. But they can have these martial races. They don't just indulge in meat and all these things just without any restriction, but with unless they have training and they're strict and disciplined, you can't be a fighting people. That's why the modern Western civilization, it's finished already actually. It looks like it's very strong, but it's got to be overrun because they can't fight. In the material world, domination means by strength, physical strength, and physical strength depends on mental strength, and they don't have it. In Iraq, they're able to dominate by technology. But if it was man to man, the average American soldier against the average Iraqi, then they wouldn't have a chance. Because they're just profligate. They're fully interested in sense gratification. So how can you fight? All the great martial races in history, they have discipline. Discipline is required. So in our Krishna conscious movement also, there has to be discipline. Otherwise, how can you organize? How can you fight? If you always question this, question that, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, then nothing's going to work. And in the army also, you have to, you follow the order, and sometimes the order may be wrong, just like I was saying, this charge of the light brigade. But still, that doesn't mean you give up the principle of following a leader. If the leader, if that whoever ordered that, he was probably removed from his post. That was a really bad decision. But in general, you have to, just like Prabhupada, he sent people all over the world to start the preaching, and those who had the spirit to do that, he encouraged that. And they made mistakes, definitely. When you're a leader and you're trying to promote something, then you have to take risks. You never know you take a decision, you never know exactly what the result of that will be. So definitely you can't predict. You can only estimate. So some mistakes will be there. But you can't just reject someone because they make some mistakes. The fact that if they're trying to push it, they're sincerely trying to push on the Krishna conscious movement, then that's glorious. That should be praised. Someone came to me the other day in some place and said, "Oh, this leader made that mistake." Of course he makes mistakes. But what are you doing? If you don't do anything, then you can't make any mistakes. And then it's easy to say, "Oh, I did this wrong and that wrong." But what are you doing? You didn't make any mistakes because you didn't do anything. If you do something, you're going to make some mistakes. That's your mistake. You didn't do anything. And if someone's really incompetent, then of course, then they should be removed politely. But it may also be what we see as a mistake isn't a mistake. Just like I'm saying nowadays, they're saying, "Oh, in the old days we're too heavy and this and that." But so many books are being distributed and Prabhupada was pleased. That's not a mistake. So there was a lot of pushing, and people say, "Oh, that was too much," and this and that. But maybe we have to learn how to push in a way that people don't get pushed over the edge. But the pushing has to be there. It's not that we're all such great pure devotees that we're all just automatically we just do whatever's required. Some pushing is required. If there's no pushing, then we'll just kind of float in our own dreamland of what we think is Krishna consciousness. And nothing much gets done. Prabhupada was result-oriented. He liked to hear, what are the book distribution scores? And he would push the devotees. But he got the Sankirtan scores. So there was a big competition going on in America, Los Angeles, Radha Damodar traveling party. Prabhupada once got the scores from Los Angeles, and he said, "Oh, now tomorrow he'll have a heart attack," he said. Because that Radha Damodar party was doing so many books, and then they brought the scores in from Los Angeles, and tomorrow was doing so much, and they completely flattened them. They thought, we must be winning, and instead Los Angeles completely defeated them by doing many more. And Prabhupada said, "Oh, now tomorrow we'll have a heart attack." Tomorrow was standing right there, and everyone was laughing at him. But it was all, it was all for pushing on the book distribution. So Prabhupada stoked the fire of competition. And devotees, they were doing for Prabhupada's pleasure. It could be, sometimes it got out of hand, you could say. But the effort overall was pleasing to Prabhupada. He liked that. Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Any more question? Yeah.
Arjuna was advised to fight because of his nature, he was a fighter. But maybe not everybody has such a...
Not everyone has a fighting nature, that's true. Although in Kali Yuga everyone has a fighting nature, but not that kind of fighting. Everyone's just arguing with each other. So should we all fight? No, we're not supposed to fight, but we're all supposed to preach Krishna consciousness. Preaching Krishna consciousness is compared to fighting. It's not actually fighting. Preaching Krishna consciousness is the duty of the soul to serve Krishna. Now, if we say we have to act according to our propensity, I just like to know who has got the propensity, who has got the innate feeling that they want to pick up a big bag of books and go around and try to sell them to people who don't want to take them. No one. If we say who's got the propensity, no one has got it. But we do it because it is the desire of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is the desire of Srila Prabhupada. So this is acting beyond our psychophysical propensity. Now, it's true that we should engage in Krishna consciousness according to our psychophysical propensity, but that is not the highest truth. We hear this a lot, that I have to act according to my propensity, which often comes down to, I'll act according to what I want to do, according to my own sense gratificatory ideas. But that is not the sum and so what psychophysical nature we have acquired is due to our sinful activities in previous lives. That's not me. That's not myself. So, preaching Krishna consciousness is the dharma of the soul, not of the contaminated body and mind. So it actually lifts us up to a higher platform. Now it may be that within the preaching mission we also come to in course of time we come to some platform or some service that is more in line with our psychophysical propensity, and there's no harm in that. We could say that's normal or natural in due course of events, but especially in the first few years of Krishna consciousness, it's very good to just do the needful, as Prabhupada often said, and especially to go on book distribution, to come to that spiritual platform, to understand that. Otherwise, if we're always working on our psychophysical propensity, it's very difficult to understand what's beyond that or to transcend that. So it's good training in surrender to do that, to do the needful. So that when we may gravitate to some other services, but we should always know that, alright, so I'm acting according to this psycho-physical propensity that I've acquired due to my previous sinful activities, which is not me. But that should be done in a mood of full surrender. It's true, Krishna told Arjuna to fight. He didn't ask him to put on a dress and join the Rasa Leela. So Arjuna had his pure nature as his Siddha Swarup in service to Krishna. He's an eternal Kshatriya. So Krishna asked him to act in that capacity, but in full surrender. Krishna didn't just ask Arjuna to fight. Otherwise there was no need of speaking Bhagavad-gītā. He could have told him, hey look, you jerk, you've got to fight. You're a Kshatriya. And he could have just spoken to him on that platform. And Arjuna would have done it. But Krishna brought him to the platform of spiritual knowledge, of doing it in surrender to Krishna. So that is required.
When the courses for preaching, should you be very direct, or you can go along the lines, especially when you're speaking to some other religion, like Jainism or Muslim or...
Preaching to Jains? You do a lot of preaching to Jains?
Talking to them about this, they don't accept normally. So
no, Jains, better if you can give them a book of Prabhupada's.
Usually they just talk on their lines and...
Mostly they don't know what Jainism is anyway. But they inherit the enviousness and anti-Krishna, in voidism and enviousness of Krishna. They don't know what their philosophy is, but they just inherit a kind of anti-Krishna consciousness. So they just feel, no, Mahavir. They don't really know anything about him. But so better if you can to give them a book. And to give them a book, it's also very difficult usually. They may be more open-minded, some younger people or whatever, but the traditional Jains are very tough. So the best thing in that case is usually to say, well, we're protecting cows and we're promoting vegetarianism, and somehow, at least that's my experience with Jains, that if you try to bring them to any platform higher than that, it's very difficult to have any kind of communication with them. What's all your experience? You don't get many Jains in Salem, do you?
No.
There's a few here, there's a few everywhere. North Indians, from Rajasthan probably. Tough group. We do have a few devotees who are Jains, but younger people. The older ones are tough. What do you say to them?
I speak about the soul, and then they take science.
Science of self-realization. Okay, that's a better platform than the one I just suggested.
And one fellow from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya consciousness. This is the topmost consciousness.
Oh, that's interesting. They use the word Chaitanya.
They use a lot of word Chaitanya.
Okay. So there you are. There's some clues. You can say we're teaching about the science of incarnation, reincarnation, because they follow that in their own strange Jain way. And then you can say we're teaching about Chaitanya.
Tell them that Chaitanya is mentioned in Bhagavad-gītā first.
Yeah. Now the hippies, Jains are the forerunners of the hippies. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.